just for our people watching on Facebook, we're actually in a movie theatre, and it's not just any movie theatre. It's classic. It's got the silver screen behind us, and I'm feeling very, very lucky. I might even revert to some of my other personas and get into the performance sector. Yeah, one of our campaign strategies is give the people what they want. So, who knows? Look, I want to thank everyone for giving up their time. And what I mean by that is that elections in New Zealand are quite an incredible thing. You know, no one forces you to do it. The government, they book the school halls for casting the votes. They print the ballot papers with the names of people who put themselves down. But no one forces anyone to stand. No one forces anyone to form a political party. You know, no one forces you to give money to political campaigns, although that is a really good idea, by the way. We'll talk about that later. And no one even forces you to vote, let alone give up your evening like people are here to come and debate the future of our country. And so I'm here partly to tell you a bit about what ACT stands for and what we are seeking to do for New Zealand, but also to hear what it is that's on the minds of people in Rangiora and surrounding areas. Because in representative democracy, it's about representatives listening and reflecting what people have to say and what's on their minds as much as talking at you. Now, I've got double booked one of these things that happens, so I'm only here for half an hour, and then I'm going to turn over to Nicole McKee, our number 3 candidate. So let me do this at super fast speed so we can open up for some questions and answers, and then sort of just like a real stage show, there's sort of Act 1 and Act 2, and the Act 2 being Nicole. So I just give you 3 very basic thoughts about what needs to happen. Whoever wins this election, we got to get Taiwan smart about public health. Our current approach is basically, first of all, be grateful. And if you're not grateful, the government will compare us with a country that's doing badly, just to reinforce that you should be grateful. And I don't think that's good enough. Second of all, we're doing the best, and there's no questioning of that. And third, if you don't agree with point 2, return to point 1, be grateful. And I don't think that's good enough. I think the next government is going to have to work out how we can, first of all, maintain elimination without lockdowns, and we know that's possible because Taiwan is doing it, and then how to reconnect safely with the rest of the world, because it's just not sustainable to carry on the way that we are. And let me just give you a couple of examples of that. There are people in the tourism industry who say, look, we've got a resort in the middle of nowhere that happens to have the same capacity as a 737. Why can't we, under strict rules with strict penalties and proper enforcement, bring a group of rich Americans down, say for 2 weeks you've got to stay at this nice resort, then you can go wherever you like. Where's the harm in doing that? We're not even having the conversation right now about being proactive about how we safely reconnect and ask what we can do. And then I was talking at the other end of the scale to some people in fishing, and they said, look, if we don't get these Russians down to run the boats, then there's no fish, and if there's no fish, there's no jobs for people who do the processing and all the other stuff that has to be done on the shore. So I said to them, well, why don't you just get a few people off the Dolcu, put them on the boat, send them to the Southern Ocean for 3 months, see what happens. And they said, you're an idiot. And I said, well, fair. I mean, I'm a politician, not a fisherman. And they said, there's one other problem. All the instructions on the boat are written in Russian. I said, well, you know, what are we? Just challenge. I don't see any problems, just challenges to overcome. But you start to see how dependent New Zealand's economy is on global links, and we can't maintain total physical isolation from the world forever. It just won't work. So that's number 1, is that we've got to get Taiwan smart about public health. And I would send the 10 smartest people to Taiwan, 10 smartest I could find in the government, which might take a while. So go to Taipei, write down everything that they do, and come back and we'll implement it, because they have shown the way to do it better. Not going to give a big lecture on our whole policy because it's Friday and people don't really need that. But it is on our website, our wellbeing approach to COVID. It shows how we could get Taiwan smart and operate better. The next thing I'd say is that we need to actually start having an honest conversation about the debt. You know, some of you people may know I had a short, but not short enough career as a celebrity dancer. And one of the results of that is I got the third biggest following on Instagram of any member of parliament. Unfortunately, the average age of my follower is only 14, and the voting age is 18, so you can see my problem. Although you wait till 2026, they're going to take off here. I'll get Saddam Hussein levels of polling, 98%. You know, these kids obviously not really, they thought I was a funny guy on the dancing show. They're not really following me because of politics, they're following me for dancing. So then they come along, and I start getting messages during the lockdown. Who is the government borrowing all this money from? Who has to pay it back? If 14-year-olds can figure out that 15 years worth of deficits the Treasury is now predicting are a problem, then I think we owe it to them. Kids who are currently at intermediate in some cases are going to be the ones most affected by the borrowing decisions made today. And I think we've got to start having an honest conversation about the debt. And our debt destroyer is a website, debtdestroyer.nz, where you can actually go and play with the numbers and see what is ahead of us trying to balance the budget. I'll just give you a couple of examples. You know, I'm totally in favour of people saving and investing, you know, because having more capital is the way to a better future. But right now, it's government policy to borrow $1 billion a year on the global debt market, give it to citizens in the form of KiwiSaver subsidies, and encourage them to invest in the global share market. Now, I don't think that is sane, because you can imagine the conversation. The debt management office at Treasury ring up the bond market, say, oh yeah, can we borrow $1 billion? Sure. Just out of curiosity, what do you want it for? Oh, we're going to give it to citizens and let them play the share market. Oh, okay. And then they say, well, just one thing. This is fully underwritten and will be paid back by the New Zealand taxpayer, right? Yeah, of course. Oh, here's your $1 billion. No problem. We've got to stop doing things like that. Some of the younger people won't like this, but fees-free tertiary, insane. You know, the Labour Party, founded on the West Coast to advance the interests of the working people, has a policy that gives $500 million a year, mainly to 18-year-olds from wealthy households, pursuing a tertiary education. And you've got to ask yourself, even if you're someone who might be benefiting from it, do you want to be a taxpayer for the rest of your life in a policy environment where that's a normal policy? That's $500 million a year. Now, if it got kids from poorer households to start studying more, I'd probably think, well, maybe that's a good thing. Problem is, after the policy was introduced, you actually got more kids from decile 8, 9 and 10 schools going to tertiary education. Whole lot of kids that never get a chance, don't get into tertiary education, get no benefit. They just get a job, hopefully, and pay taxes to fund things for rich kids. $500 million a year. Can we keep affording it if it's borrowed money? You know, the ACT Party says no. You go through our debt destroyer and we show how we could reduce spending by $76 billion over the decade of the 2020s. And I think that's something that any government's going to have to front up to. So that's the second thing. But just to hopefully cheer people up a bit, I think we also need to start being a bit positive about the situation that New Zealand finds itself in. You see, for as long as we've been a country, one of the things that's defined us is our isolation. You know that great Split Enz song, Aotearoa, rugged individuals, the tyranny of distance at the bottom of the world, 6 months in a leaky boat. You know, you try and do business in New Zealand, you try and buy something, you try and get a job, you try and employ someone. The problem is you're always far away from everybody. You know, as Billy Connolly once said, you're closer to the moon than you are to Melbourne. You know, and it's partly true. Well, actually, I checked, it's not, but you know, it's still a good story. You know, this has changed the game for us. Suddenly, isolation on a pandemic planet is actually a major strategic advantage. And I think this thing could go on for several years. I just suspect one way or another. way more people saying that they're going to have a vaccine than have actually developed one so far. I suspect that'll continue. So then you say, all right, well, we're a place that has choices. You know, as an island nation on a pandemic planet, we have choices that continental countries don't have. We can choose who we let in and on what terms and how we quarantine and what technology we use to trace the virus, just like Taiwan does. And then we can become a safe haven where people can keep doing business while the rest of the world is going to be various states of carnage no matter what they do for a long time. The problem is we make it so damn difficult for people to do basic things. I'll just give you one example. TY Point produces some of the purest, most environmentally friendly aluminium in the world. And if you tried to build it today under New Zealand's resource management laws, it would never be allowed. It could not be built. My grandfather, his company actually wired the thing. He would be astonished if he came back now and discovered that they could never rebuild it like they did in the early 70s. And you can apply that to so many things. If you can't build an aluminium smelter, imagine a generation of kids that just want to build homes. You need permission to build a deck on your own property. This stuff is crazy. And then you look at the various groups of people that try to make a difference, and they get beat on by the government. Here's an example. Landlords. Now, I, as a renter, think landlords are the most fantastic people. I don't have time for all this stuff, maintenance, insurance, all the stuff they have to do. I actually just like paying a pretty modest weekly fee, and I was barely home anyway, so it doesn't make much difference. One time I moved and went back to the other house. I forgot I'd moved. So, but it's a great service. And the way you look at it, it's almost as though landlords are public enemy number one. They're like Pol Pot, constantly being assaulted. And the stupidest thing about it is that the rules have been put in place, make it so risky to be a landlord because you can't get rid of someone, that people just don't take a chance on anyone. They don't advertise on Facebook or Trade Me like they used to. They use their personal networks to find a tenant. So if you've got good connections, went to a good school, probably these laws don't affect you. If you're someone that really needs a second chance, then you're not going to get one. That's the irony of Labor's assault on landlords. It's ultimately an assault on tenants. What about farmers? One of my favourite candidates is Mark Cameron, who is a Ruawai dairy farmer. Ruawai is near Dargaville, which is near Whangarei, which is near Auckland, in case anyone's, I know you guys see that North Island is a strange place, but I was trying to reference it. He said, look, I've had 34 years as a dairy farmer. He's buried 4 mates because of the mental health crisis in rural areas. And there's a number of reasons for that. Isolated work, a lot of stress, taking on big risks and so on. You can understand why there's a mental health challenge in the rural areas. But it doesn't help that his own daughter goes to school and gets made to write an essay, not about whether, but how her parents are destroying the environment as farmers. That's what farmers have been given in the last couple of decades. The Green Party, the party of hugs and inclusion and kindness, has run a smear campaign against a group of people who are just trying to feed the rest of the world. And the irony of it is that they're actually attacking conservationists, because farmers are the only people in New Zealand whose actually living depends on the land. So if you're a farmer, and just help me out here as a townie, do you try and destroy your own property because you don't want to make money next year? No? Okay. When you're doing nutrients, do you just spray it everywhere because you don't care about losing money? Or do you do riparian planting? Do you do riparian fencing? Are you actually heavily invested in the welfare of your land and your animals because that is your source of wealth into the future? I think the second story is a lot more correct, but it never gets any credit. And so when it comes to these water restrictions or freshwater laws, when it comes to the ETS, when it comes to ridiculous rules around pugging and winter cropping, the ACT Party stands for minorities, such as landlords, such as farmers, people who get beat on. I'm sure you'll hear a bit about what's happened with licensed firearm owners when Nicole takes over for Act 2. Another example of a minority getting beaten on. And then there's that hard-working minority that gets beat on, net taxpayers. The thing about Labor is that they actually have no trouble with beating up on a minority. So long as they're successful, then it's okay. And so X proposition is that if we actually have a regulatory environment and a tax environment that is conducive to people making a difference in their own lives and the lives of those they care about, not being fodder for politicians and their grand government schemes, then actually this place, helped by our isolation in the middle of a global pandemic, could take off like a rocket, grow our way out of the debt. That's the opportunity. But unfortunately, at this point, the debate is all about who we're going to take more money off, or who we're going to regulate, or who we're going to do things to. And I'll conclude by saying the ACT Party, if you believe in one thing, fundamentally, the dignity of the individual. That's why we did end-of-life choice, because people shouldn't be forced to suffer at the end of their life if they're in trouble. That's why we did charter schools, because every kid should have a school that actually engages them and helps them realize their true worth and build their own self-esteem. That's why we stood up for licensed firearms. That's why we stood up for free speech, because everyone should be able to share their ideas so long as they're not inciting or encouraging violence or threatening people. This is what we fundamentally stand for. And there are too many minority groups who are being oppressed and attacked by the government because it is politically expedient at a particular time. I'll give you an example of my pin-up boy for this. I was at the Seeker show, which is a deer stalking event in Taupo last year. And I said, "Oh, you got on your thanks for sticking up for us." I love Support Act. I said, "Oh, that's great." I said, "You must be a deer stalker." He said, "Yep." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I work in oil and gas." I said, "You poor bugger, they're after you." I said, "Where are you from?" "Taranaki." He said, "Where do you live?" "Oh, on a farm." Couldn't believe this. This guy's public enemy. He's like ground zero for government indemnity. We got rid of him, everything would be fine. That's probably what they're thinking. So we're here to stand up for that individual dignity. Now, what I might do is I got all the 10 minutes, and sorry, I just got a text message. I don't know who it's from. David, a friend of mine is worried his girlfriend will vote Labor. I get all sorts of problems, all sorts of correspondence. I don't. Yeah, all right. Actually, it goes on to say, I'll see who this is from. It goes on to say, I thought it might be funny if you made a video convincing her to vote X. My mate's name is Phil, and it's Olivia who is swing voting. All right. I don't know who the hell that's from. I'll deal with that later. Sorry, I was thinking I might make a video here. It could be fun, but anyway. But look, happy just for I got a few minutes just to hear the feedback and concerns that people here have. So I've talked for about 20 minutes. I've got to leave at 6:30 to get to the big smoke. But what is it on the minds of people here? What do people come that maybe I haven't talked about or you disagree with, sir? A vote for ACT is a vote for less debt and lower taxes, for more freedom and greater personal responsibility. For those who get up, work hard, save and invest, I say to you, ACT has your values. And yes, a vote for ACT is a vote for a genuine chance to jumpstart the economy. We can balance the books and create a government that's efficient and effective, as well as delivering the essential services that people depend upon.